Mario Vargas Llosa once said that Garcia Marquez was not an intellectual, and it may sound as literary gossip, but it wasn't. Actually, Vargas Llosa was one of the first voices that in the 60s and 70s praised Garcia Marquez's works as originals, as something very innovative in the Latin American literature. Obviously, when we listen to Mario Vargas Llosa, Nobel Prize of Literature 2010, talking about Gabriel García Márquez, Nobel Prize of Literature in 1982, we cannot forget their famous fight, the breakup of their friendship, and until the death of Garcia Marquez in 2014, they never talked to each other, they never met, regardless of many efforts of their common friends. As I was saying, Vargas Llosa analyzed very profoundly the fiction works of Garcia Marquez in a book which title is Garcia Marquez, Historia de un Deicidio. I don't know how they call it in English. The word deicidio is an invention of Vargas Llosa, which means something like the assassination of God. What Vargas Llosa stated in that book of 400 or 500 pages is that Garcia Marquez was something that was operating like a god in the literature because he was founding a new world. For instance, in his major work, 100 Years of Solitude, but also in his previous novels and short stories, who were the introduction of that fictional and unforgettable world of Macondo. So Vargas Llosa knew very well what Garcia Marquez meant to the history of the literature, not only in our continent, but also in the world. They had common influences recognized by them, like William Faulkner, like Ernest Hemingway, like Virginia Woolf, like Alexander Dumas or Victor Hugo, and they were very close friends for a few years until they had that famous fight. Why does Vargas Llosa say that Garcia Marquez is not an intellectual? Is he disrespecting his former friend? No. What he means is that Garcia Marquez, and he says that literally, Garcia Marquez could not explain his own greatness. He could not explain what he was doing in 100 Years of Solitude. He had an instinct. He was like a magician. Garcia Marquez is a writer that as soon as you start to read one of his works, you cannot stop until the end. He was so blessed, he was so gifted with that capability to write in a manner that we get kind of obsessed with his characters, with his stories, with the situations that he presents. But he could not write essays with very deep sociological or historical or critical approaches like Vargas Llosa himself, like Octavio Paz, like some renowned literary critics. He was not none of that. He was just a writer, he was just a storyteller, but one of the greatest of all time. Garcia Marquez had a period, especially in the 70s and 80s, when he published very frequently articles in the Spanish newspaper El País. He used to write about Latin American society, about situations that were happening, especially in Latin America, but also in Europe. And both in those articles and in his speeches, like the one that he delivered when he accepted the Nobel Prize of Literature, he's always a storyteller. He's not writing essays. He's not trying to explain things in a very complex form. He is kind of inviting us to discover things, to discover interests of human nature, of society, of culture that get us involved, that are very interesting to us. But he's not explaining, he's just showing. And he's doing that with a poetic style, with an excellence that really is always amazing. So I have wanted to rescue that phrase of Vargas Llosa. Garcia Marquez is not an intellectual, because instead of being something negative, he's just praising that Garcia Marquez was one of the most gifted authors of all time.